People just don't pay attention to the church anymore like they used to, and it's harder than ever to try to capture the attention of our city and harness it, seize it for Christ, even with a loving, saving, rescuing message that we have. We just can't seem to grab people's attention. So in this video, I'm going to share how your church is effectively not reaching your community, what's getting them to not pay attention to you, and then the correct ways to go out, capture their attention, share that love of Christ with them so you can make disciples, impact your community, increase the righteousness. We are going to be relentless today about pursuing our calling and pursuing our city. Let's go.
Welcome to the Best Known Church Show, where we show you how to 10x your reach with church marketing that will help you increase your impact, make more disciples, and become the cornerstone of your community again. This is for the leaders with an outrageous vision, because anything less would be an inaccurate reflection of our Creator. The ones who have unreasonable faith, because you know God works unreasonable miracles. And the ones who are relentless in the pursuit of your calling, because anything less would not make a good and faithful servant. If that's you, you're in the right place. Now, please welcome your host and guide on this journey to become the best known organization in your community, Justin Nava.
Welcome to the Best Known Church Show. My name is Justin, and if we have not met before, I take full responsibility for that. I am the founder of Nava Church Marketing and the creator of the Definitive Church website, Definitive Church Marketing Method. Part of that is the Definitive Church website framework, which I'm going to share with you later on. But we are here to help your church become better known in your community, nay, this show to be the best known in your community, because it's one thing just to know you exist. It's another thing to not being able to ignore you in your community, to not go a week without hearing about what your church is doing, what God's doing in your church. I want your church to be the best known. I want people to know you better than they know Walmart. In today's episode is going to be a huge turning point for someone's ministry. If you listen and take to heart, okay, I'm going to call some things out you may be guilty of. If you're an honest and integral pastor, I want you to really self-examine. Are we shooting ourselves in the foot, or are we actually doing whatever it takes to reach new people? I just finished, I got one more speaking gig to do this year in conference season, but it's not on a topic that I've addressed in the last few stages that I've taught on and workshopped on, and that's the purpose of church marketing. Because I think a lot of people don't understand the importance and the role that marketing has in our community. So I want to share with you today everything about reaching people in your community and growing your church gets a whole lot easier when you realize that marketing is what's capturing people's attention and bringing them to church. I want to take you back to the 1960s. If you were fortunate enough to be alive at that time, you might remember the Jesus Revolution. That was Christians realizing that rock and roll held the youth's attention. And so what Christians did was they said, why should the devil get all the best tunes? And they created Christian rock music and had festivals and concerts and worship stuff, worship series. And they would effectively reach new people because their attention was on rock and roll. So why not bring Christ to where people's attention are and focus it on Christ, not to demean Christ, but to use a new medium to capture people's attention and share the love of God in the gospel with them. We're at the precipice, or if not, we've taken our first steps into the latest revolution, and that is the marketing revolution. Businesses, brands, influencers, gurus, life coaches, and unfortunately, even politicians have figured out how to capture people's attention and use it for their own gain. And they're not using it for the kingdom, so to speak. They're using it for the worldly systems that they are entangled in. And in the same way that Christians took rock and roll and brought attention focused on rock and roll into Jesus, I think churches need to step up and look at how other brands, other businesses, how psychologically marketing is playing a role in capturing people's attention, and then use some, if not all of the ethical methods that others are using to capture attention, and use that to bring attention to Christ and use it to bring people into the faith community. Because I don't want you just to be a digital evangelist, although there's nothing wrong with that. I want you to present people to Christ, absolutely, but also have them continue their faith journey with you in the context of your local church. Okay, so here's the problem. I mean, the youth's attention, and I'm not just talking about youth, I'm talking about moms, dads, even grandparents. Their attention is elsewhere right now. And attention is one of the few non-renewable resources that we have. Can't get more time back, and you can only pay attention to one thing at a time. Okay, you can't pay attention to politics and pay attention to all the good things your local church is doing. You can't even pay attention to what the bad things that other churches are doing and pay attention to what the good churches are doing, right? Your attention really, if not completely, is maximally focused on one thing. And like I said before, the youth's, man, I keep saying church when I mean to say youth. The youth's influence, but also many of our community that attention is on influencers, on gurus, on life coaches, on brands, on politicians. And look, if we can't capture that attention, we're never going to get it back. And like I always say, if they do not know you, they can't go to you. And in the same way, if they're not thinking of you, they can't pay attention to you. If they can't pay attention to you, they can't hear you. And if they can't hear you, they pass another day without hearing the gospel. So what we need to do is we first need to understand that the way the church grew in the past, by being the natural cornerstone of the community, by being the literal marketplace, not business-wise, but like cultural-wise, the town square, that's the word I'm looking for, the town square of the community, it's not that way anymore. Not only that, instead of being the place, the refuge, the place where people said, you know what, I can go there. If I ever need something, if I'm in trouble, if I'm hurt, if I need something, if I need help or support or even prayer, the church was the place to go to. It's no longer that way before. It's no longer that way, the way that it used to be before. And so this is not a situation of let's do something else compared to what we did before. We're now in a situation and a time where we need to do what we did before and then some. This isn't we used to invite people to church and personally, and now we're going to do it digitally. No. You got to invite personally in addition to doing it digitally. I mean, don't you ever think back 100 years, man, pastoring would have been a lot easier, right? Things were cheaper. You didn't need as big of a salary. Your flocks, the flock you had to shepherd was only like 30, 40 people maybe. And it was real easy to be involved in the community and share the love of Christ that way. Now, man, the world is totally different. But that shepherding didn't stop. That preaching didn't stop. That counseling didn't stop. You just had more stuff to add to it. Now your sermons are being recorded, so they got to be really good. Now you got to have multimedia. So now you got to have a team you got to manage. Now you got to have kids ministries, youth ministries, worship ministry. You've got all these different ministries, and the church has really been businessified, whatever you want to call it. And you have to do more than just be a pastor. You have to be a CEO. It's difficult, and I understand it's not fair, but we can't stop doing what we used to do. We merely have to adapt it, add on to it, and do even more to reach the same number of people. But the good news is the more that we do, scales even larger. So while we used to work, let's say, I'm just making up numbers here. While we used to work 4 hours and we could reach 40 people, we can now work 8 hours and reach 800 people, 20 times more people, just by working twice as much, okay? And I'm literally just making up numbers. So the point is, you don't need a shortcut. And I think that's where we've gotten a lot of trouble, is we look for shortcuts, when really what we need is a roadmap. There is no driving through the desert around the road to get to the end point of seeing another 10, 20, 30 families in your church. We need a roadmap to take us down the path we used to go down. Plus, there's going to be some toll roads along the way. But when you do that, you will see the church grow. You will see more people paying attention to hear the saving message that you have. This is the whole point of the Definitive Church Marketing Method, right? You don't need a shortcut. You need a roadmap. And the Definitive Church Marketing Method is the roadmap that you can take step by step to reach people. Be clear, be memorable, be intentional, be engaging, be found, be represented, be known, be seen, and be everywhere. You follow those steps, you will reach more people, get them paying attention, 10x your influence in the community, bring more people to church. For some churches, triple. For some churches, 10x. For some churches, double, right? Just depends on where you're starting from. And if you want to learn more about it, you can go look at my other YouTube videos. I got breakdown on every step of the church marketing method, or you can schedule a call. We'll talk about that later. But the point is, the reason why no one's paying attention is because their attention is elsewhere. And in the same way that we use the Jesus revolution, so to speak, to capture attention through rock and roll, we now need to capture attention through marketing. Okay? Now, I'm going to share with you a pretty cool story. This is literally hot off the presses. Okay, this literally just came across my desk, and we're still compiling it together. But if you know me, Justin doesn't wait for things. He just goes at it full force. Okay, and here's the whole point of what I'm about to share with you. Don't use invite cards. Use the perfect invite system instead. What I'm about to share with you, we literally just ran a church through. It was an idea I had. I don't know if I'd call it a revelation, but we took one of our methodologies and we just tweaked it a little bit for church specifically. And as a result, a church had double the number of people, 225% exactly, coming to their church compared to the previous month. So they had over double the number of families coming to their church. And we had them ditch their invite card. They said, we got these invite cards and people are handing them out. And I said, are they really? Because here's the thing. Invite cards used to work, but like I said before, we have to not only do what we did, but we have to do more than we did. We have to do what we did plus some, right? And invite cards are really only good if someone's already planning to come, okay? An invite card does not get me to go to church. It just tells me where to go to church. Clip that. All right. People have already decided to go to church when they look at your invite card. All right. So it may be a leave behind. It may be something to remember, but a typical church invite card that has the name of the church on one side, you turn it over, it's got some address, service times, maybe a map. Nice glossy card. It stands out in your wallet. It's hard to ignore. Maybe you post it on your fridge. Those invite cards, they're great at offering information, but they're not great at offering inspiration. Meaning it tells you a lot about the church. It doesn't tell you why you should go to church. It doesn't really inspire you to go to church. And it doesn't really help the church relate to the person being invited. Quite simply, they're impersonal. It's almost like, hey, instead of having a conversation, just read this card. Same thing, it's kind of like tracts, right? I think every pastor wants people to hand out tracts, but we don't want to just hand them out and then say, see you later. Smell you never, right? We want to have a conversation. And that's what I realized, that when marketing in the church world enhances the personal invite, I realized that the congregations weren't really equipped to make the invite. So I want to share with you real quick. I'm actually looking for 5 pastors. If you're watching this live, you'll hear this first. I might clip it for the YouTube clip. I'm not sure. I'm looking for 5 pastors to run through this intentionally with them to see if they can get the same results. But I'm going to share with you what we did with that church. They ditched the invite cards and they doubled their first-time guests in 1 month by doing what I'm about to share with you here. And we're going to try something new on the Best Known Church Show. I've got a whiteboard here, and I'm going to try to position it so you can see it, because I got to get a little visual to it, okay? The perfect invite. Man, this is gold. I appreciate you guys. If y'all are here early, you're about to get something here. Okay, the perfect invite happens in 3 steps. Okay, 3 steps. Now, you need to understand something. Okay? People don't go to church because they understand what the church does for them. They go to church because they feel understood, right? If I don't feel accepted, if I don't feel understood, if I don't feel heard, if I don't feel listened to, if I don't feel empathized with, then there's a good chance I will not take a next step with someone, okay? So a lot of times when someone invites someone to church, they say, hey, would you want to go to church with me? There's no understanding there. What if you could say one sentence that would capture people's attention and get them to listen to that invite a little bit more intently? That's the first step. The first step we call understand. Because we want people to feel understood. We want them to feel like the church understands them. We've been there with them, and we empathize with them. Therefore, they should listen to us because we've understood what that's like. Okay? If you've ever talked with a coach or a personal trainer or even a teacher that says, look, I get where you're at. I get where you're coming from. I understand what you're feeling. How much more likely are you to listen to what that person has to say? That's the understand. So what we did was we said, what's one sentence that could capture your city's attention? Now, we hook it into what keeps them up at night. Okay? Is it finances? Is it worries? Is it the culture? Is it stress? Is it family? What is the one thing that keeps people up at night? Now, we can go super deep into this. I'm going to try to do about 3 hours of coaching in 3 minutes. But what's that one sentence? Okay, for us, for my church, which we are a disciple, we try to bring in Christians and turn them into disciples. Well, enhance their discipleship capabilities and turn them out into their communities. So for us, we know that Christians want their friends and family to know Jesus, but they just feel awkward inviting them to church, or they don't know how to share their faith, right? Anyone that our church is equipped to serve will listen to the next thing I have to say because they can relate to that. Another one of our clients says, hey, the church has done a terrible job of answering the real difficult questions of life, okay? Anyone that has a spiritual curiosity or even is militantly atheistic towards the church will listen to what this church has to say next. All right. The world has its boot on your neck, and it feels like you make an inch progress forward, you're dragged back a foot. Okay. You understand how I'm showing empathy, I'm showing connection, I'm calling out that I understand where you're at. Okay. How much more am I going to go to a church that understands where I've been versus is just saying the same thing as everyone else? That understanding is a huge first part. Okay. Then you connect the church to that problem, okay? So how does the church relate to how you understand someone? Meaning, hey, the church has done a terrible job of answering life's real difficult questions. So that's why at our church on Sundays, we actually have a free time to ask questions of the pastor to get answers to your difficult questions, right? I know the world has its boot on your neck, and when you try to take a step forward, you're dragged back a foot. You're dragged back a yard. I mess it up every time I say it. That's why on Sunday mornings, we open the doors of the community for them to come in and to be healed, to hear the truth of God so they can live better and love better. Okay. How does the church speak to those needs? Okay. We did a workshop last week and we did this real quick, and it was, okay, our community is up because they're worried. They're worried about not having enough money. They're worried about their family. So, their understanding line might be, hey, we understand there's a lot to worry about, and you can't deal with it all. That's why our church not only gives you a way to make it to the end of the month, but will also show you how Jesus can help you in those areas of your worry. Okay? And then you got the so that. Okay? So that you can live better, you can love better, so that you can finally get the answers to life's difficult questions, so that you can finally be healed and stop being so sick and tired, so that you can finally go to sleep knowing your family's fed, your mortgage is taken care of, or your rent is taken care of, and you can actually focus on the important things in life. I'm trying to think of another example. So that you can have friends again and find real community in 2023, because we've lost that, right? So this is the perfect invite. How do you understand them? How does the church fit into that understanding? And then what's the big transformation? What's the big benefit? This is the first step to anything you do. If you start with this, you get your website content, you get your Facebook content, your social media content. You'll never have to worry about what to post ever again. But not only that, if you can equip your congregation to share this, to know what that one sentence understanding is, to know how the church meets those needs, and to be able to share the benefit, you will see double the people coming. This is exactly what they did. They did a sermon series where they encouraged people to memorize this, like a Bible verse almost, and to go and invite 2 friends using this script. And it's not really a script, but this framework, okay, this system. And what happened was the church went out and more people were listening to that church invite. More people were paying attention to what those congregation members had to say about their church because they felt understood. This is the key. This is the perfect invite. This is how you double church guests in 1 month. You give your congregation the tools they need to properly invite their friends and family. Okay. And like I said, this is the first thing. If you want to actually go deep into this is very incredibly difficult to do on your own. If you want an objective third eye on it, third eye, that's not right. That's spiritual woo-foo. If you want an objective pair of eyes, someone from outside your circle that understands this is hard to get on your own, go to NavaChurchMarketing.com and schedule a call. And we can set up a coaching call with you, and we can actually run through this together with you and give you even more tools to give your congregation to make that invite. Okay? Because once you figure this out, everything else falls into place. And the other thing that we need to address, the other elephant in the room, is the disconnection between church and the community. And it's not for the reason you think it is. A lot of pastors will tell me people just don't care about the church anymore. They're too distracted. They're too selfish. They're too whatever. Okay? Unfortunately, it's actually the church that has allowed that apathy to exist. And it all comes from how we've been promoting the church. And it's actually your church events. See, promoting your church events consistently is one of the reasons, if not the prime reason, why no one is paying attention to your church. Because church attendance is at a decline. We're still around, the latest numbers I could find, 85% of people are going to church compared to where they were pre-2020. So pre-2020, compared to now, we've had a 15% drop off. 85% of the people are going back to church, okay? And it's steadily declining. Okay. And we can blame the government. We can blame the pandemic. We can blame shutdowns. We can blame selfishness, apathy. We can even blame live streaming. But all of those are just blaming symptoms instead of recognizing the root cause. And the root cause is the church has relegated itself to the sideline. We've stepped back and said, we're here if you need us. Instead of going out into the community, consistently reaching out to our people, to our neighbors, to the people we're called to serve. We've taken the church from a life community, faith community, living life, to come to this event. Come to this if you feel like it. We got free food, right? The church has become programmatic in its outreach. And I'm not saying the church has become programmatic, although there are programmatic churches out there. We've become programmatic in our outreach. Because instead of saying, hey, we're here, Jesus loves you, let's talk, let's relate, let's do life together, we've said, here's an event, here's another event, here's another thing we want. Can you give us this thing? We've become programmatic in our outreach, either unintentionally or intentionally. We've allowed people to see, we've given them reasons to see that we only care about them when we've got something going on. How many times, if you look at your promotion or your marketing, how many times have you promoted, like intentionally promoted events, including Easter and Christmas, compared to a normal Sunday in August or a normal Sunday in September, October? We've taken living faith daily to let's figure it out at these special events. And we do that because we've let fear drive us instead of hope. We're afraid of what would happen if we actually communicate what we're doing every day. So we communicate what we're comfortable with. Oh, let's do this event. And when we want to look at something new, we let fear drive us. What happens if it doesn't work? What happens if this turns people away? What if this offends people? Instead of being hopeful. What's going to happen if this resonates with twice as many people? What's going to happen if we get 3,000 more people paying attention to us next week when we do this? So here's what you need to reconnect the church, the real church, the faith community, the congregation, to the community. And number one is you have to have what's called an evergreen outreach, meaning something that's running all the time, evergreen, it's always green, it's always running, to reach your community. And if you do that, number one, they'll always know what's most important to you because you're communicating what's most important to you. Joining the faith community, hearing the gospel, and being discipled. Okay? Number two, they have a constant endpoint, meaning whenever they feel the pull of God or whenever they have curiosity, whenever they're thirsty, they know the next step you want them to take because you're always running this, you're always offering this. Whereas if you just promote your Easter service and they feel the pull of God in October, well, that church is really only open to new people every Easter and Christmas, so what am I going to do? That's the impression you give off when all you do is just heavily promote events. Second thing you need to do is focus on relationships and not informationships. I know that sounds silly, but you need to focus on relation more than information, okay? Meaning when you do promote, when you do Facebook ads, when you do Google ads, when you do flyers, you don't want to just tell them about it. You want to invite them into a relationship to get to that point. So for example, instead of, hey, come to church this Sunday, God wants to meet you here, you can actually open up a conversation and say, this Sunday we're talking about divorce. What's the biggest question you have about divorce? We'll make sure we answer it or address it. Or, we've got our fall festival coming up. And if you RSVP, we'll have a special gift bag just for you with special candy not available anywhere else. And when they RSVP, you can then follow up, hey, you've been confirmed. How many kids do you have coming? Do you have any allergies? By the way, do you already have a church home? Okay, there's a dialogue there. It's kind of the same. You're promoting the same event, your fall festival, but one is just blasting information and the other is inviting into communication, which communication is kind of relating with each other. There's a relationship there. And then thirdly, you've got to stop being afraid, pastor, church leader. You got to have some hope, right? Instead of saying, oh, I don't know about that. That's new. We've never done it that way before. Instead of, you need to think about it like, we've never done this before, so we're going to reach people we've never reached before. We've never done this before, so we're going to see results we've never seen before. This is why we have something we call Be Seen. It's a step of the definitive church marketing method in where you're running an evergreen campaign. So you're constantly reaching new people or reminding people that maybe already saw your ad that this is still available to them. Because even though they may not want prayer now, they may want it next week when they get their third strike from work and get fired. They may want prayer, unfortunately, but hey, let's use what we got. They may want prayer at the end of the month more than they want at the beginning of the month after payday. Okay? But if you can keep that invite in front of people, they'll always know what the on point is. And they won't have to wait for events, or they won't tune you out because you're just an event-driven church like the rest of them. Events are important. Events are good. I love it when a church says our endpoint is actually a community event. I really do like that. But if the messaging is not always there, that Christ is always interested in you, even though you're not interested in him, then when they feel that pull of God, they will seek the entry point that you designate, and constantly having that entry point in there. Even if it is a community event, if you intentionally are doing community events as that on-ramp, that'll work as long as it's evergreen, as long as it's always going. And so when you're seen, if people do see you and they want to look you up, you want to make sure that you have a positive first impression. And one of the places they'll always go first is your website. So make sure you have your website up to par with a good first impression. And you can get the framework for that at navachurchwebsite.com. I don't know what happened to my fancy lower third, but hey, we'll roll with it. navachurchwebsite.com. You can click down below. There'll be a link wherever you're watching this. And you can get the framework so that when you're seen, when you're heard of, when you do those outreaches and people hear about your church and they're like, let me check this church out. Or, right, hopefully they'll be like, oh, this might be my answer. Let me go check this church out. You have a positive first impression and a way to enter into a relationship with them without relying on them to step foot inside your building. And this is very important because the website plays a role in people determining whether or not they're going to go somewhere. When we relaunched our church's website, we had 13 families join the church in 3 months. And when asked, what brought you to our church? 12 of them said, we saw the website in some way, shape, or form. They said they saw the kids ministry looked like a place where they could feel comfortable leaving their kids. They said they saw people that looked like them. They watched a sermon and said, this pastor's not crazy. Let's go try this church. The website will play a role, and you want to make sure you have it up to par and have a good first impression. All right. I'm going to try to keep these shows around 30 minutes long. I don't want to go too long. And as you can tell, I am under the weather. I had quite a bit more stuttering today than usual. But thank you for sticking with this. Wherever you are, like this, subscribe to this, follow this, whatever the platform says. Every Monday, we're going to be doing this to help your church become better known, because in order to be known, you have to capture their attention. In order to capture their attention, you have to relentlessly pursue where their attention is and seize that methodology for Christ. In the same way we seized rock and roll, in the same way we seized kids' activities and we created youth ministries, we can seize modern marketing methods and use it to create relationships with our community and point them and disciple them in Christ. So thank you for watching. God bless you all, and I'll see you all next week.
That's going to do it for today's episode of the Best Known Church Show with Justin Nava. Be sure to subscribe to stay updated on the latest news, strategies, and resources that you need to reach 10x more people and become the best known in your community. To send us a message or leave a voicemail for Justin to be played on a future show, visit thebestknownchurchshow.com. And if you'd like to work with us so you can focus on your ministry, give us a call at 832-861-7654. Until next time, stay outrageous, unreasonable, and relentless.